My wife demanded I turn down my dream job's $80,000 raise because it would make her look bad. I took the job and her true colors came out. I, 34M, have been struggling to process the events of the past 6 months that led to the end of my 6-year marriage, all because my wife couldn't handle my career success. I work as a financial advisor in Boston. I met my wife during our final year of college. She was studying art history while I was completing my business degree. After dating for 3 years and living together for 1, we got married. She currently works as a curator at a mid-sized art gallery, making around $45,000 annually. At my previous firm, I was making $75,000 as an associate advisor. Everything changed when I received an unexpected job offer from one of the top financial advisory firms in Boston. They had been impressed with my consistent client portfolio growth and risk management strategies. The offer was for a senior advisor position with a $155,000 base salary, plus quarterly performance bonuses. This was exactly the career advancement I'd been working towards: comprehensive benefits, clear path to partnership, and the opportunity to work with high-net-worth clients. When I shared the news with my wife, her reaction completely blindsided me. Instead of being happy, she became hostile. She claimed that me making more than triple her salary would make her look bad to her friends and family. She was worried about feeling inferior and insisted it would create an unhealthy power dynamic in our relationship. This reaction made no sense to me. Throughout our marriage, we'd maintained a clear system for handling finances. We kept separate accounts for personal spending while sharing joint accounts for household expenses, splitting costs proportionally based on our incomes. This arrangement had worked perfectly for years, with neither of us ever expressing any issues. I spent several days trying to reason with her, explaining how this opportunity would secure our financial future. We could build substantial savings, plan for a house in a better neighborhood, even start thinking about investment properties. But she wouldn't listen. Instead, she delivered an ultimatum. Either I turned down the job offer, or she would have to rethink our marriage. I discussed the situation with my parents over dinner that weekend. My father, who had spent 30 years in investment banking, was appalled by her behavior. My mother, who had always gotten along well with my wife and often went shopping with her, couldn't believe what she was hearing. They reminded me how I had always supported my wife's career choices, including when she turned down a higher-paying museum position because she preferred the smaller gallery environment. My sister, a corporate lawyer who has handled her fair share of divorce cases, offered an insightful perspective during our weekly lunch. She pointed out that my wife's extreme reaction likely indicated deeper issues about control and self-worth that had been masked by our previous income similarity. She warned me that giving in to such manipulative demands would only encourage more controlling behavior in the future. After careful consideration, I accepted the job offer. When I told my wife my decision, she became increasingly hostile. She started making snide remarks about how I was choosing money over our marriage, and began telling our mutual friends that I had changed and become obsessed with status and wealth. The situation escalated when I received my first quarterly bonus after 3 months. I had exceeded my targets, resulting in a $20,000 bonus. Rather than celebrate this achievement with me, my wife accused me of flaunting my success and deliberately making her feel worthless. She even called my mother-in-law, spinning a story about how I had become materialistic and arrogant. My mother-in-law, who had previously always been reasonable, began taking my wife's side. She started calling me several times a week, trying to guilt me about destroying my marriage for money. My father-in-law, surprisingly, remained neutral and privately expressed that he understood my position, having faced similar career decisions in his own life. By my 4th month at the new firm, the situation had deteriorated further. My wife began spreading malicious rumors at her gallery, telling her co-workers that I was financially controlling her. She claimed I was forcing her to live on a strict budget while I enjoyed my lavish lifestyle. The truth was exactly opposite. I had offered to increase my contribution to our joint expenses to 75% given my higher salary, but she had adamantly refused. My best friend since college, who owns a popular lunch spot near her gallery, overheard her colleagues discussing these allegations during their break. He immediately texted me asking to meet after work. According to him, she had been systematically building a narrative of financial abuse, claiming I was pressuring her to quit her job so she would become financially dependent on me. What happened next shocked me to my core. I discovered she had been secretly recording our conversations without my consent, which is illegal in Massachusetts as it's a two-party consent state. I only found out because my cousin's wife, who knows one of my wife's gallery colleagues, received one of these doctored recordings and was concerned enough to warn me. These recordings were heavily edited versions of our arguments. She would deliberately start fights about money, provoke me until I showed frustration, then only share the parts where I sounded aggravated. She had carefully curated these clips to paint herself as a victim of emotional abuse. When confronted, she broke down and admitted she was building up case for divorce, planning to claim emotional and financial abuse. I immediately called my sister for legal guidance. Given her experience in corporate law, she helped me understand the serious legal implications of my wife's actions. She advised me to document everything and consult a divorce attorney specializing in high-conflict cases. Additionally, she recommended I inform my firm's HR department and compliance team about the situation, as my wife's false allegations could potentially impact my FINRA registration and client relationships. At home, my wife's behavior became increasingly unpredictable. She alternated between completely ignoring me and having explosive outbursts. During one incident, she grabbed my work laptop and threatened to email my clients about our personal issues. Thanks to our firm's strict security protocols requiring dual-factor authentication, she couldn't access my work accounts, but this attempt to sabotage my professional reputation was deeply disturbing. Following my attorney's advice, I began legally recording our interactions in our shared spaces in Massachusetts, ensuring compliance with state law. I installed visible security cameras in our common areas, with clear signage as required by law. My wife's reaction to the cameras was revealing. She became enraged about being monitored, despite these being openly visible security devices in shared spaces. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law intensified her involvement. She began calling various family members, spreading stories about how my new job had changed me and how I was emotionally abusing her daughter. My uncle, who rarely gets involved in family drama, contacted me with concerns. After I showed him the documented timeline of events and evidence of my wife's manipulation, he was stunned by the extent of her deception. My sister helped me create a comprehensive record of everything, a detailed timeline of my wife's escalating behavior, her attempts at defamation, and her threats against my professional reputation. We gathered statements from witnesses, including my best friend who had overheard the gallery rumors, preserved text messages containing threats, and documented her admission about the illegal recordings. Most importantly, we ensured all evidence collection was fully compliant with Massachusetts law to ensure it would be admissible if needed. The situation came to a head during a family dinner at our house in early October. My wife had organized what she called a family mediation, inviting both sets of parents and her sister. Given the tension, I consulted my attorney before agreeing to attend, and we discussed appropriate boundaries for such a meeting. What was supposed to be a discussion turned into an orchestrated confrontation. My wife and her mother had prepared a presentation of sorts, complete with their curated evidence of my supposed emotional and financial abuse. They began listing incidents taken out of context, distorted versions of our arguments, and completely fabricated claims about financial control. Their plan backfired spectacularly. When my mother-in-law played one of their edited recordings, I calmly pulled out my phone and played the complete version, which I had legally recorded in our shared spaces with visible notice. The full recording clearly showed my wife's provocations and manipulation, including her explicitly stating her intent to make me look bad. The atmosphere in the room shifted dramatically. My father-in-law, a retired business executive who had remained mostly neutral, finally spoke up. He directly asked my wife if she had been deliberately manipulating evidence and spreading false allegations that could damage my professional license. When she couldn't provide a straight answer, he walked out, visibly disgusted. My wife's sister, who works in public relations and had initially believed her sister's version, was visibly shocked. Later that evening, she pulled me aside and apologized profusely. She revealed that my wife had long exhibited signs of status anxiety, frequently comparing herself to her friends' spouses who worked in finance and law. She admitted my wife had often expressed resentment about her curator role, despite having chosen it over higher-paying positions. The dinner ended chaotically when my wife realized her plan had imploded. She ran upstairs, locking herself in our bedroom while screaming about everyone betraying her. Her mother followed, still trying to defend her actions, but it was evident that the truth had been exposed. The next morning, following my attorney's prepared strategy, I had her served with divorce papers at her gallery after hours to avoid public drama. I had already secured a month-to-month lease on an apartment and moved my essential documents, valuables, and a portion of my clothes there, based on my lawyer's guidance. As predicted, she immediately tried to restrict access to our joint accounts, not realizing I had already established separate accounts for my income as advised by counsel. Her next move was predictable. She attempted to file for divorce first, claiming emotional abuse and financial coercion. However, my legal team was prepared with extensive evidence. Legally obtained recordings showing her manipulation, notarized statements from witnesses regarding her defamation attempts, documented text messages containing her threats, and security footage of her erratic behavior, all collected in compliance with Massachusetts law. When her attorney reviewed our evidence during preliminary discussions, particularly the documentation of her illegal recordings and attempted professional sabotage, they quickly advised her to pursue a settlement. We had concrete proof of her attempting to damage my FINRA-registered professional status, her admission of falsifying evidence, and her pattern of defamation, all actions that could have serious legal consequences under Massachusetts law. Her final retaliatory attempt involved contacting my firm's compliance department, alleging I had misused company resources to surveil her. Thanks to my sister's earlier advice, I had already documented everything with HR and compliance, including providing them with my attorney's contact information. The firm's legal team responded with a formal cease and desist letter, warning that any further false allegations could result in legal action, as they posed a direct threat to my professional registration. The divorce proceedings moved efficiently through the family court. When my wife's lawyer realized the strength of our evidence regarding her illegal recordings and deliberate defamation attempts, they advised her that pursuing false abuse allegations could result in both civil and criminal penalties under Massachusetts law. After consulting with 3 different attorneys who all gave her the same advice, she finally agreed to mediation. Massachusetts requires a 90-day cooling-off period after filing a divorce complaint before it can become final, which gave both parties time to negotiate reasonably. During mediation, she attempted to claim she deserved a larger portion of our assets because she had limited her career advancement for our marriage. My attorney presented documented evidence of her voluntary career choices, including emails where she explicitly stated her preference for the gallery position over higher-paying opportunities. This effectively ended her demands for additional compensation. The divorce was finalized last month, after the mandatory 6-month NICI period required by Massachusetts law. We had a clean division of assets. No alimony was warranted since both parties were employed and capable of self-support, and we had no children. The division followed standard Massachusetts equitable distribution laws. She kept most of our furniture since I had already established my new residence, while I retained my retirement accounts and investments. We sold our house and split the proceeds based on our documented contributions to the down payment and mortgage payments. The professional fallout was significant. At her gallery, the carefully constructed victim narrative crumbled after several of her colleagues learned about her admitted evidence manipulation during the divorce proceedings. My friend who owned the restaurant told me that many of her co-workers, uncomfortable with how she had manipulated them into spreading false allegations, have distanced themselves from her. My former mother-in-law recently attempted to reconcile, sending an email claiming she had misunderstood the situation. I forwarded it to my attorney without responding. My former father-in-law, however, sent a thoughtful apology, acknowledging he had observed similar behavior patterns in my ex-wife's previous relationships, but had hoped marriage would help her mature. My career has continued to flourish. I've secured several major client portfolios and received another substantial quarterly bonus. My firm, impressed with how I handled the situation professionally while maintaining client confidentiality, has fast-tracked my consideration for a team lead position opening next quarter. This experience has taught me valuable lessons about maintaining professional and personal boundaries. As my sister says, the income disparity didn't cause our marriage to fail. It simply revealed character flaws that had been there all along. While the situation was challenging, I'm grateful it exposed these issues before we had children or more entangled finances. Through mutual connections, I heard my ex-wife has started seeing a therapist to address her deep-seated insecurities and control issues. While I wish her well in her personal growth, I'm relieved I didn't compromise my career aspirations trying to manage her unreasonable demands. Looking back, Accepting that job offer was pivotal, not just for my professional growth, but for revealing the true nature of my marriage. It showed me who genuinely supported my success and who was more concerned with maintaining control. I'm sharing this story because financial control and manipulation can manifest in unexpected ways. Sometimes the person attempting to exert control isn't the higher earner, but rather someone whose insecurities drive them to restrict their partner's growth. I'm thankful for my support system, especially my sister, whose legal expertise helped me navigate this challenging situation properly.